Hey guys, I'm Leo, and for today's video, I'd like to show you how to make sweet white bean paste called Shiroan. This is one of typical N, which is sweet paste of beans, squashes, or potatoes. And this is often used for feeding wagashi, Japanese desserts, and is also an essential ingredient of the dough for wagashi decorations called Nerikiri, like this. They look cool and are tasty to me and hopefully to you. You wanna make them by yourself, don't you? Actually, there are a couple of tips to make the Shiroan delicious. So you will learn how to make it totally from scratch and how to preserve it for a long time later in this video. But this recipe is quite similar to how to make Koshian. So if you have watched the video on my YouTube channel, you might not really need to check it out. But anyway, let's get started. First, please prepare white kidney beans. The amount of Shiroan will be about twice the weight of the dried white kidney beans. Today, I will use 1 pound of white kidney beans. The finished Shiroan is expected to be 2 pounds. Please prepare 80 to 90% of the weight of dried white kidney beans in sugar. So 0.8 to 0.9 pounds of sugar. And prepare a 30 to 60 mesh strainer and a 20 inches square of sarashi. Sarashi is a Japanese cotton cloth. Then rinse the white kidney beans thoroughly with water to remove any dirt. When you usually make Adzuki bean paste called Koshian, which is the most popular feeding paste of wagashi, you don't soak Adzuki beans before you cook them. The Adzuki beans soften relatively easily and quickly, but when you make Shiroan, you should soak the white kidney beans in water for at least 5 to 10 hours before cooking. By doing this, it will cook in a shorter amount of time. I usually soak the beans in water overnight and make Shiroan the following day. These are the overnight soaked beans. You can see how big they expanded. Next, get rid of the soaking water. Put the beans in a pot and pour 1.5 times of new water in, and then boil it on high heat. This process has mainly 2 points to make tasty Shiroan. The first point is to make the beans boil quickly, and the other point is to remove the astringent component of the white kidney beans. I'll explain in more detail now. After a couple of minutes of boiling, add 4 cups of cold water. It is said that the rapid drop in temperature of the water makes it easier for the beans to absorb the hot water, allowing them to boil quickly. It will take some time for the water to reboil, so remove the additional amount of water. Do the same thing again, as one temperature drop is not enough to shorten the boiling time. You may notice that the color of the water is getting whiter. That means more astringency is coming out of the beans with the color of the bean skin. Return the water to a boil each time after water is added. Repeating this around 3 times. As it begins to boil again, drain the water. Pour some running water over the beans. By doing this, you can remove the astringent component of the beans thoroughly. At this time, the beans are a little wrinkled and not yet soft. I said that this process makes finished Shiroan tastier, but if you don't mind the difference in taste, it's okay to skip that part and go directly to the next step. Now, put the beans back into a pot and add the water until it covers the beans fully, and put on high heat. When it comes to a boil, reduce the heat. Continue to cook until the beans get soft enough for about 1.5 hours to 2 hours. Though it totally depends on the kind of beans and how fresh they are. If you have fresh harvested white kidney beans, it usually takes a shorter amount of time. Be sure to add water occasionally as the beans absorb water and grow and the water evaporates. If the beans come to the surface of the water, they won't become soft and will cause uneven boiling. This is a boiled state after 1 hour. You can see that the beans gradually expanded and absorbed the water. I will show one of the ways to check if the beans are ready. Try crushing the well-chewed beans with your fingers. If you can easily crush it completely, the boiling process is complete. If the bean core is still hard, boil it further. After the beans boiled for an hour, they still have a hard core, so they need to be boiled more. This time, I boiled them for a total of 2.5 hours. If you really want to shorten the boiling time, you can use a pressure cooker. Place a large mesh strainer in a large bowl and transfer the beans to the strainer. Pour water over the strainer. And use your hands or a spatula to crush the beans and separate the skin from the contents. Strain any beans that remain in the strainer. Rinse thoroughly so that all beans are soaked in water. The remaining skin is no longer used and can be discarded or it may be composted. Next, strain the bean soup that has been strained earlier into a 30 to 60 mesh strainer. It will take time. It is poured with the water, gently stirred and strained. Once plenty of water is in the bowl, it can be strained by dipping half the strainer in water and straining. Gradually, only hard bean content pieces will remain in the strainer. You may notice that there remain some hard pieces in the strainer. If you don't want to waste them, you can blend them with a blender and strain it again. I sometimes do that. Leave in filtered water for about 5 minutes. This cloudy color should be removed. This is done to remove the astringent component to make the taste nicer. Throw away just the spermatent. Then, add a decent amount of water again. Since this water is also thrown away, the amount is not important. Repeat this a couple of times. The color looks like this after 3 times. The water should be clear and you should see the beans precipitate. Then, finally, separate the beans from the water. Lay the sarashi cloth on top of the strainer and pour the bean water over it. Using the sarashi, you can separate water and beans thoroughly. Wait a few minutes for the water to soak. When there is a little water, squeeze it and use your full power to squeeze it out. This work always requires the most strength. The more water you squeeze, the less time you will need to heat the bean paste to evaporate the water in the process of mixing with sugar. The finished bean paste looks like this. This bean paste cannot be stored in the refrigerator for a long time. You can store it in the freezer for a relatively long time, but it's better to use it soon. However, you have to be careful to make sure that the wrapping is tightly sealed to prevent air from entering as much as possible. Otherwise, the flavor will diminish immediately. Cover it with plastic wrap like this. Okay, so now we are in the final process. Mix the sugar and the bean paste together and heat them. First, I use half the weight of the bean paste. Put half the bean paste and all of the sugar together in the pan. Put on high heat. Use a spatula to mix the sugar and bean paste thoroughly. If you think the water content is low, you can add a little more water, but if you add too much water, it will take time to evaporate, so I usually do not add water. When all the sugar has melted, add the remaining bean paste. A point here is that everyone is afraid of burning, so turn the heat down or stir it constantly. It will become a sticky bean paste, and the taste is no longer refined. Also, long heating is not good for the color, especially for Shiroan, as it causes the white color to get dull. Just stir the bottom of the pan with a spatula when necessary so that it doesn't burn. Let's put on high heat shortly to avoid mixing as much as possible. It's difficult at first, but you'll get used to it. When it comes to a boil, touch the pan like this to prevent it from burning. It still looks thick and moist, but the bean paste hardens as it cools. So it's time to finish the heating process. When you turn off the heat, spread the bean paste on the pan bottom. During the cooling process, residual heat removes some water. After it cools down to some extent, transfer it to a pan like this. And cover the pan with a moistened cloth to let the evaporated water go through. Here is what has been cooled to room temperature. You can see that it is hotter than when it was hot. I'll wrap it from now on in order to keep the Shiroan as long and delicious as possible. It is very important that it is not exposed to oxygen and that it doesn't dry. So please wrap the bean paste tightly like this in the wrap. Once it is mixed with the sugar, it can be stored longer, but please eat it as soon as possible. Okay, here are the important points from today to remember. First, pour cold water in a couple of times to allow the beans to boil quickly. Second, remove the astringent component of the kidney beans. Third, add water to prevent uneven boiling. Heat the bean paste with the sugar on high heat to make the heating time shorter. Fifth, keep the Shiroan in the wrap, not exposed to air. Each wagashi professional has their own way to make Shiroan, like what kind of white beans you want to use, or how long you want to boil the beans to remove the astringency but keep the flavor of the beans. So please enjoy making the Shiroan for your own taste. Also, you can make various kinds of Japanese sweets using this Shiroan. I will show you how to make them on videos in the future, and if you are interested in making Nerikiri, please check out these videos. Okay, thank you for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed learning Japanese culture with a focus on cooking. I'm gonna upload more videos about not only cooking but also tea ceremony and other Japanese cultural traditions once a week. So please look forward to it. Send your comments if you'd like to see or learn more about different subjects. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe to the channel. Okay, see you again soon. Bye!